Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to take a highly complex, honestly quite tangled regulatory web and completely reframe it. We're turning it into a streamlined, strategic project management framework. Now, if you're a busy pharmaceutical executive, you already know that navigating global drug development standards can sometimes feel like trying to read a technical manual in a language you don't even speak. But today, we are going to change that.
Okay, let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. The complete ICH guideline framework is incredibly daunting. This massive spreadsheet of codes and categories is pretty much the ultimate monument to bureaucratic red tape. It's exactly what causes that instant feeling of overwhelm for so many of us in the industry. You've got these four massive columns stretching all the way from quality and safety over to efficacy and multidisciplinary standards. It is a lot. And frankly, trying to digest it like this just isn't helpful for making actual strategic decisions. So I completely validate your overwhelm here. But don't worry, we are absolutely not going to sit here and memorize a spreadsheet.
Instead, I'm going to guide you through reframing this dense grid into a simple, actionable four-step learning guide. We'll start with our regulatory success roadmap and then move through Step 1, quality foundations, Step 2, safety testing, Step 3, clinical efficacy, and Step 4, multidisciplinary standards. Finally, we'll wrap up with key takeaways, pitfalls, and clear metrics.
All right, part 1, the regulatory success roadmap. To instantly demystify these categories, we're going to use a pretty straightforward analogy. Think of developing a pharmaceutical product exactly like building a high-performance race car. Step 1 is quality. That's your manufacturing, right? Making sure the parts are built perfectly. Step 2 is safety. This is your crash testing. And trust me, you would much rather wreck a dummy in the lab than deal with real-world fallout. Step 3 is efficacy. This is taking that car out to the track and measuring how it actually performs. And Step 4, multidisciplinary, is writing the universal owner's manual so that any mechanic anywhere in the world can understand it. By just keeping this vehicle analogy in your head, the ICH guidelines instantly transform from random alphabet soup into a highly logical, sequential project roadmap.
So let's get into it. Step 1, quality foundations.
Quality, or the Q guidelines, represent the meticulous blueprint for manufacturing your vehicle. Listen, if you are an executive overseeing operations, this is basically your Bible. It ensures your high-performance vehicle's parts are manufactured perfectly and consistently every single time. There is literally zero room for variance on the assembly line when human lives are at stake.
We can distill that massive first column of guidelines down to the 3 foundational Q codes that you absolutely must prioritize. First up, Q1A through Q1F, which governs stability testing. This is how you prove your parts are going to rust or degrade over time. Next is Q7, good manufacturing practice for active pharmaceutical ingredients. That's your core assembly line standard. And finally, Q10, the pharmaceutical quality system. Think of Q10 as the overarching management system that oversees the entire factory. If you want to standardize your manufacturing operations right now, directing your team to strictly implement these 3 specific codes is your very first actionable step.
Moving right along to Step 2, safety testing. Okay, before anyone actually gets behind the wheel, we've got to do the crash tests. The safety, or S guidelines, make up the rigorous preclinical crash testing phase. Their entire purpose is to ensure the vehicle will absolutely not harm the driver. As an executive, these safety guidelines are totally essential to mitigate massive, expensive risks before you even think about funding costly human trials. Let's pull out the most critical safety codes here. We've got S1A through S1C for carcinogenicity testing and S2 Revision 1 for genotoxicity testing. These are your foundational impact tests. They ensure the compound doesn't damage DNA or cause cancer over the long term. But I really want to draw your attention specifically to S6 Revision 1, biotechnology product safety. If you're leading a firm that's investing heavily in biologics, mastering S6 is what protects your specialized investments from unforeseen preclinical pitfalls. It requires a completely different testing paradigm than traditional small molecules, and honestly, missing that nuance can derail a project for years. All right, on to Step 3, clinical efficacy.
You've built a consistent car, and you've proven it's safe in a crash. Now you actually have to prove it can win the race. The efficacy guidelines are all about proving your engine performs on the track under strict real-world conditions. This is the clinical trial phase, where the drug must prove its actual clinical worth to both patients and regulators.
Here are the top E codes you really need to be monitoring. E6 Revision 3 is Good Clinical Practice, or GCP. This is the absolute golden rule of the track. It dictates how you ethically and scientifically conduct the race. E8 Revision 1 covers general clinical trial considerations. But check out E20, Adaptive Clinical Trials. Now, this is an emerging framework. The crucial point here is that leveraging flexible, emerging frameworks like E20 can significantly accelerate your time to market and save literally millions in trial costs, provided, of course, that you maintain strict compliance with your E6 GCP foundation. That is a massive strategic advantage to have in your executive toolkit.
Let's move to step 4, multidisciplinary standards.
The multidisciplinary guidelines are essentially the glue holding global drug development together. Think of them as that universal owner's manual. They ensure every single mechanic, or in our case, regulatory agency worldwide, understands your vehicle's exact specifications without any translation errors. These are the cross-cutting standards that harmonize terminology and data submissions on a truly global scale.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the M codes cannot just be an afterthought. We have M1, which is MEDRA medical terminology. This just means everyone uses the exact same medical vocabulary. Then we have M4, the Common Technical Document, or CTD, and M8, the Electronic Submission Format, the ECTD. I need to stress this to you right now. Early adoption of M4 and M8 formatting is absolutely non-negotiable. If you try to compile your data into these formats at the very end of your project, you are going to face massive delays. Your regulatory submission success completely depends on building the manual correctly from day one.
Which brings us to our final section, takeaways, pitfalls, and metrics.
Let's look at a practical case study to see this in action. We'll call this Project Harmonize. A successful project integrates these specific codes super smoothly. So, in the preclinical phase, they seamlessly cleared their S2 genotoxicity hurdles. That allowed them to move confidently right into the clinical trials phase, guided perfectly by E8 general considerations. And finally, because they prepared early, they moved swiftly into regulatory submission using the strict M8 ECTD electronic formatting. It's a beautiful, linear flow when it's managed correctly. But what happens when it isn't managed correctly? Well, let's pit a common documentation pitfall directly against an actionable solution. A very common executive pitfall is ignoring M4 CTD formatting early in development, kind of brushing it off as just paperwork for later. That almost always leads to chaos. So your specific action to take back to your teams today is this. Mandate standardizing terminology to MEDRA, that M1 standard, immediately across all early-stage documentation. If you fix the vocabulary now, the final submission practically writes itself. And to track your project's progress, you need clear, tangible goals. Here are your strict success metrics derived directly from the ICH guidelines. Number 1, pass all E6 GCP standards in your clinical trials without a single major finding. Number 2, achieve flawless E2A clinical safety data management compliance, which just means your safety reporting is absolutely airtight. And number 3, execute a zero-error M8 ECTD electronic submission. If you hit these 3 metrics, your vehicle is crossing the finish line. Which brings us to our final thought. Let's look all the way back to the very first column of our source grid, under Quality, where you'll find Q12, Product Lifecycle Management. Because, winning the race isn't actually the end. You have to maintain that car for years to come. So I leave you with this question. Is your Q12 Product Lifecycle Management truly ready for global harmonization? Challenge your teams to apply this 4-step framework to your drug's lifecycle today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this gives you the clarity you need to steer your next pharmaceutical project right to success.